Hey everybody, welcome back to another timeline and final thoughts, this time as Mongolia. So Mongolia starts the game as a subject of the Oirat, and of course there's the famous achievement, the Great Khan, which is to reform the sort of the historical Mongolian Empire from a few hundred years before 1444, restore that empire in the timeline of EU4. And you can either do that as the Great Horde, or you can do this as Mongolia. Now typically, the Great Horde would be the easier way to do it, and I think that's still true. Mongolia is a much weaker starting, not necessarily starting position, but starting country. But that has changed a bit because of the Mandate of Heaven, the way that the Horde can essentially sort of eat China. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but the way that like a Hordes can kind of rough up China a little bit kind of makes this maybe not as crazy as it seems. The other interesting thing is because you're a subject of the Oirat will not become, whoops, something just happened, will not become a tributary of Ming. Therefore, Ming's going to be pissed about that. So Ming declares on Oirat, I demand that you be my tributary. What we do, that puts us into a war against Ming. Seems like the worst thing in the world, right? Well, we end up declaring on the Oirat during that war for our independence. So we do a war for our independence at that point, and we end up taking some provinces here, but for the most part, we let Ming just kind of beat up the Oirat, right? We take advantage of that situation. We immediately become a tributary with Ming because we're totally cool with Ming for now. So that means Ming's not going to be upset with us, and that allows us to attack everybody else who is also tributary of Ming as well. First nation we're going to totally take out is here. Of course, we are a Tengri horde, and we are 100% Tengri. We have no syncretic faith. So that is obviously going to negatively affect our religious unity, but it is going to give us an extra 25 cavalry combat ability, or sorry, cavalry infantry ratio. So we can have 100% cav without any penalties. And that's what we're going to be, not exploiting, but that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing the full horde thing, full on cavalry armies, and just absolutely annihilating stacks 2 to 3 times larger than ours because of that, especially if we play around the flat terrain, right? We're going to get an extra 25% shock bonus in flat terrain, deserts, steppes, grasslands, farmlands, things like that. We get a minus 25 though in non-flat terrain, so we need to really make sure that we're not fighting there. So we end up going in and sort of finishing up the Oirat completely. They became a tributary of Ming, but they had no allies or anything. We just completely eat them. We ate these guys up here who have one of the only gold provinces in this sort of area. I think there's one like down here in China, but this is one of the only gold provinces that we're going to have in a while. So that's going to be like a good chunk of our economy is going to be this gold that we get here, because our economy is awful. The land up here is complete trash. We attack Yuran, but Yuran's already getting like absolutely destroyed by Jin Zhao and some of these other guys. So unfortunately, this was not a good situation because a lot of these nations are kind of either eating each other in a bad way or kind of allying with each other. So we're kind of going west at this point, just beating up, I think we'll be able to beat up Uzbek. We took a little bit out of Chagatai there. We could just keep going in here pretty much indefinitely, but we also need to make sure that we're watching this time because we need to take on Ming. The faster we can start getting these Chinese provinces down here, the better our economy is going to be, because our economy right now is rough. We don't have all the ideas. We're not ahead of time on tech. We're way behind on tech. We're way behind on the institutions. Our economy is terrible. We don't have the ideas like the humanist ideas or the offensive ideas or anything like that that's going to give us a boost. So our stability right now is incredibly weak. We're getting rebel issues. We're having to move our troops from over here to over here to over here and back again. It's not looking good. So it's 1500 right now, and we're sort of almost done sort of consolidating the northern hordes above, you know, the sort of the Mongol hordes, I guess the Manchu hordes and such, but not completely. We have these guys completely surrounded, but I can't remember who they allied that's making that a little bit more problematic. The other really annoying thing about Ming is typically you would probably already be attacking Ming at this point, but they're allied to the Timurids. They're allied to the Timurids, and the Timurids at this point are pretty strong, actually. They have a decent amount of troops. They have more troops than us. Ming, of course, has more troops than us. Ming's mandate is still very strong as well, because for the most part, they're tributizing everyone around them, including us. We haven't dropped it yet, because as soon as we drop our tributary, like if we say we don't want to be Ming's tributary anymore, Ming will attack us. I've only played up here a couple times, but usually the second you drop that, if you're not ready to attack Ming, they will attack you. And then you have that situation where it's like, it's not a good war situation, right? Because they attack into you. You can win that war, but you don't have the CB that you want, because we have a tribal conquest CB that allows us to get you know, win the wars pretty quickly and get stuff on the cheap. Both cheap and aggressive expansion. Also, we don't have to pay Diplo and stuff like that. So it's optimal for us to attack people and not be attacked by people. I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to sneak all the way over here, because the Timurids are actually allied with this tiny little nation here, Bashkira. And we're going to attack them to get into a war with the Timurids to break their alliance with Ming. Problem is, when we do this, and this is kind of like we have all our troops over here, because again, the Timurids have a large army at this point. They have a large army. Our army is still very small. We probably have 2 stacks of troops right now. We probably have a cav stack, maybe like a small infantry stack or something like that. Like, it's not much. We don't have a lot of troops yet. These guys are going to attack us. I kid you not. Japan, one of these 2 Japanese nations, is going to attack us. It's going to be super annoying because we're over here fighting. We have to come over here, like, finish these guys off. It's just like the worst. The worst. It's 1550. We have not attacked Ming yet. Anyone that's played a horde up here before knows how slow that is. That being said, Mongolia is, of course, weaker than the Manchu hordes. If we were playing the Manchu hordes, we would have done this much faster. Mongolia doesn't have the startup time that Manchu does. So, in fact, I think even, I want to say, does Zhenzhou, do they actually have feudalism at the start of the game? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but we don't even start with feudalism, which is a huge bummer for us. So there we go. About 1560, we take our first provinces from Ming. We take back some of our cores, and then we also take Beijing and some other doodads up here. So we don't have a lot of the juicy land down here yet, but it's a process, right? It's a process. We've beaten up the Timurids already, sort of made them not really so much of a factor anymore. We've beaten up Transoxiana. We're sort of bumping into this border with Russia now. Unfortunately, Russia's going to grab these 2 little bits. We didn't completely cut Russia off, and they're going to get a little bit more. But we can see that because we broke... Right, so what happens is if you break your tributary status with Ming, there's a disaster if you're a horde nation to the north, like the northern horde disaster. And this is why Ming will declare on you pretty much instantaneously if you don't declare on them. And I can't even remember for sure if they declared on us or we declared on them or what exactly happened. But basically, because we have, like, I think it's over 200 development or 250 development, their mandate is going to be ticking down, or there's going to be a timer on a disaster. There's actually a specific Ming disaster that then affects, if it triggers, then affects their mandate decay. It decays their mandate. So it's not that we sieged them down or we devastated them or anything like that. Just us bordering them and beating them up in a single war was enough to get their mandate to 0. So mandate is at 0 right now. In fact, they're not even the Emperor of China anymore. Within 30 years, Ming has completely exploded. And to some degree, it's kind of like, okay, hooray. Hooray. We can beat these guys up. Some of these wars were just taking money, to be honest, because, like, our economy is still terrible. Finished off Korea. That was pretty easy, actually. Actually, I think we finished off Korea. Yeah, we finished off Korea before we attacked Ming. But we're just beating up. We're just sort of trying to keep these guys out of a coalition. Because, again, still, our military is not that strong. Our actual economy, we're losing money. We're making money because we're demanding money in war. But we're actually, like, just losing money monthly. Like, we still don't have the economy from here because we still have high autonomy in these provinces. We haven't given these provinces time to sort of decay down. But basically, we are slowly picking these guys off. I think either you and Wu are sort of trading the mandate back and forth. But at this point, all of this border with Russia is sort of solidified. Russia's going to continue to sort of do their colonization in Siberia. Kind of annoying. It would have been like an interesting idea to fight them earlier to cut them off. Maybe we didn't really have the time. Never really had the time. But if we could have, it would have like been kind of nice because this is always kind of annoying to take back. That being said, it worked out fine because it ends up, we just take this later, way later in the game, and sort of ended up having a sort of a cleaner border. So, you know, we're sort of finishing up China, 1650. We're leaving Yu, or Wu, who has the mandate, right? Japan hasn't even been touched yet, but they have fully unified. Malacca is doing pretty well down here. Delhi, Vijayanagara, and Orissa are doing well. I think Vijayanagara is our only ally, or Russia actually declares on us at one point. We win the war, but we don't get anything. We basically just piece them out. This was probably 20 years beforehand. Russia declares on us. We beat them up, but we don't have the war goal that we want to take stuff from them. We finally declare on them in like 1670 and have this tether to sort of just cut them off a couple ways, just to kind of make life a little bit harder for them to kind of navigate around. And just kind of pincer up there. I don't know why we specifically did that, to be honest. But then in the second war against Russia, the second offensive war against Russia, right? We cut off all the land that we need for the achievement. So the Russia region is safe, sort of. technically there's a couple provinces up here we forgot to take, and something's going to happen with those. Ottomans are doing really, really good this game. Austria is doing horribly. In fact, actually, I kid you not, Ireland formed at one point. Croatia's just having an amazing game. Prussia's doing amazing too. Russia's doing amazing as well. So at this point, actually, we have some stretch goals, right? The achievement basically requires us to have sort of the Central Asia region, Russia, the Pontic Steppes, Persia. Like we need basically all of this stuff for the achievement. But we had a stretch goal to get Indochina and to get India, and basically pretty much all of in Japan and all of mainland Asia, not necessarily counting Arabia, but we'll end up getting a big chunk of it here. We do start warring the Ottomans because we need Persia. We need the Persia region. Once we got the Persia region, we were able to form Yuan. Well, actually, we could form Yuan earlier, but we didn't end up forming Yuan until we could immediately form the Mongol Empire, because Yuan takes you away from a horde government type, and I wanted to stay horde the whole time. So we hit Yuan, we immediately hit the Mongol Empire, because we've waited to hit Yuan until we had the requirements for the Mongol Empire, which means we took the mandate for Yuan and then immediately got rid of the mandate by forming the Mongol Empire. We are now a horde again. We spent like half a day as a non-horde. Sad times. So we're still horde. We still are Tengri. We have 100% cavalry infantry ratio, and we're still exploiting it. We're just like absolutely dominating the Ottomans and the Russians like it's nothing. Sort of cleaning up the borders as best as we can. There goes Vijayanagar. And actually, you know what, honestly, the end of the game was just kind of a slog. Now you can see that we're red. Now the Mongol Empire is not red, but the timeline bugs out because we formed Yuan and then into Mongol Empire on the same day. So it goes red because Yuan is red. But the Mongol Empire is actually this like gray, white, blue. So this is actually the color of our nation here. This is kind of the final, this is kind of where we're finally at here. Unfortunately, Prussia ended up like taking some bits from Russia, and we never ever fought Prussia, which we could. Kind of annoying. We never needed any of this stuff for any of the achievements. We ended up getting a bunch of achievements this run, actually. This wasn't just the Great Khan. This was the Great Khan. I'll graze my horse here and here and here, which is 200 provinces producing grain. Also, that's a Silk Road. That's a Silk Road. So we ended up getting all the provinces in the world that produce silk. That forced us to conquer deeper into the Ottoman territory. Deeper into the Ottoman territory. The Great Khan, of course, was the goal of the achievement, the harder of all the achievements here. And we did it as Mongolia, so it feels good. Actually, 1,000 provinces. I guess I never had this. I don't think I've ever had a nation that had this much development, too. If we go look here, 7,854 development. Spain actually had just a killer game. Spain had a PU over Portugal for a big chunk of this game. They ended up not having it in the end. They lost it at one point, but they did have it for a good long while. Good long while, which meant they basically controlled the entire New World. And like just all of this, and yeah, Spain had a great game. Spain had a fantastic game. We had to fight Spain for a couple little bits over here. They had Taiwan, they had some stuff over here. They kept buying up territory from India. It was super annoying. So we had multiple wars against Spain, but it was just like sitting and waiting for the war score to tick up. It was like conquest wars. But borders not as clean as they could be over here. We have 60 years. We could technically just conquer probably all of Europe. But what's the point? What's the point, right? We have formed the Mongol Empire. We have a beautiful Mongol horde. Asia. Genghis would be proud. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. 400 ducats a month. And we're not even optimizing our trade at all. Yumen, I think, is where we just left it. We left it in the same spot because what I noticed was we had 100% control of this province or this territory very early, this trade territory. But what happens is all of China goes this way. Like, we're losing a bit in Canton, but all of China pushes up this way to Yumen. So, I mean, 99% here, you know, basically 100%. So we're getting a lot of ducats pushed to here. It's true. Once we eventually conquered more, like you can see we have 100% here. And once we conquered all of India, which was the last thing we did, once we have all this, Persia would have been by far the best, right? If we could have had all the 95% here, 84% here, 95% here. Like if we had it all set up for Persia, the money would have been insane. Like would have been absolutely insane. Like we're not taking advantage of the fact that we control all of this trade here. So there's hundreds of ducats we're leaving behind, but in the first half of the game, the fact that it was here was actually really good because it was better than Beijing, right? Because we actually got more. Well, it would have been about the same, but we did get technically a little bit more trade because it was here rather than Beijing, because we could just push all of Beijing to there really easily anyways. So the economy, we have unlimited money, unlimited manpower. We actually got to 100% army professionalism, not drilling a single day. This is just training military generals. We had some amazing generals. Let's look at the ideas really quick, guys. We went humanist into offensive, and once we did that, we got the policy here for the 5 less years of separatism, on top of the benefits that humanist already gives you, the minus 10 years of separatism. So rebels weren't really a big deal at all. There was a little bit of micromanaging with the rebels, but for the most part, it was good. We ended up going some fun ideas we went trade just for fun, to try to have short-term economy help. Aristocratic ideas just for fun, just for the cavalry combat ability. There's a espionage policy with aristocratic for a 20% bonus to cavalry combat ability, and there's also yearly corruption reduction, which is something I was worried about because of the state to because of territory to state ratio. And it turns out we didn't actually use all of our states. We have some really juicy states we could get. 63 development from Mysore. Wow. So if we go over to here, though, we can see 50% extra cavalry combat bonus, which is super cool. And the other thing that's super awesome that we did is movement speed. Now, the super horde that we are, the Mongol government, gets an extra 15 or 20%. Then we have a policy for 10%. And then we also have an idea group from Yuan for 15%. So we have 45% movement speed. What a goofy stat, but man, we were chasing people down in war. It was absolutely terrifying. The Mongol cavalry stacks were just absolutely just destroying everything. It was amazing. This was a really fun run. Challenging start, kind of became a monotonous end, but that's how it always is for EU4. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this timeline of final thoughts. For Mongol Empire, the Great Khan as Mongolia proper. Stayed true to our roots the entire time. We stayed Horde. We stayed Tengri. We stayed... Yeah, what else is there to say? We stayed true to the ancient empire. So thank you so much, everybody. I will see you guys in the next one.